Hello there and welcome back to the Chaps Guide, the channel where we go on a journey of exploration of men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now, one of the real joys of running a YouTube channel is the correspondence that I frequently get from people who ask me questions about style and like to interact with me about some of the video content that I make. But I received a video challenge the other day which really piqued my interest, and here it is.
Hi, I'm Timothy Big Pretty Crow from Big Pretty Man, the channel for the extra large man who wants to live his life large and in charge. And I'm here to issue a challenge to my pal across the pond, Ash the Chap Jones, host of the Chap Guide. You know, Ash, you've given us a lot of great advice and did some great videos on shoes, on ties, and recently on flat caps, and even some advice on hats in general. But therefore it makes me ask the great question. You are the chap. Where's the bowler hat? I mean, what chap worth his weight doesn't own at least one bowler hat and do at least one review of it? You know, I know that I'm probably stereotyping the British, but you know, we both know, Ash, that this is a stereotype that has a long and legitimate history. From 1849, where it was invented, all the way up to the 1970s with the Ministry of Silly Walks. So come on, we know that the bowler hat and the chap are two things that go together. So therefore, I'm issuing you this challenge. I want you to go out and get yourself a bowler hat. And then I want you to wear it for 2 weeks. I want you to wear it to work. I want you to wear it to your social events. I want you to wear it with both your dress ensembles, with your casual dress, your casual business dress. But I want that bowler hat on your head, and I want you to then give us a review of the bowler hat and the reactions that you got from it. Now, if I can wear the bowler hat, you know, here in Philadelphia, the home of Rocky, and I get all kinds of compliments, shouldn't be too hard for you, you know, being as there is still a history and the hat is still worn a bit there. So I really look forward to this review. Now, I admit that it takes a little bit of bravery to put on a vintage hat and walk around for 2 weeks, but I think you are definitely the British bloke who's got the bullocks to pull it off. So I want you to go out and I hope you accept this challenge. I want you to go out and get that bowler and, you know, put it on and be like me and be really pretty.
I'd like to thank Tim Crow of the Big Pretty channel for setting me this challenge. I heartily recommend his channel, although the concept behind it is style advice for larger statured gentlemen. It's worth going to visit because there's some great advice which can benefit all of us. But it was a good challenge, and one which I am going to rise to today. Now, I have to say, although I love a good hat, I had never owned a bowler hat before, and I decided to make a small investment in this wonderful hat. But before I talk about my experiences over the last 2 weeks, let's talk about the origin story of the bowler, because as you may know if you've seen my previous videos, I really like to delve into the history, the backstory of the products that I wear and get involved with. So where did the bowler come from? Now, the bowler, or it's also called the derby hat, depending on where you live in the world, has got an interesting history. It came into being in 1849, where it was created by the brothers Thomas and William Bowler, who were jobbing hatters back in that era, and they accepted a commission by Lock and Sons, which is one of today London's most prominent hat makers, and back then very much still was the case. Now, they've been asked by the Duke of Leicester to create a hat for his gamekeepers, and there's a story behind that. Now, the Duke of Leicester's estate had a number of gamekeepers, and the fashion of the day was that gentlemen would wear top hats. Now, these were somewhat impractical for gamekeepers. They were constantly being knocked off the top of their heads by low-hanging limbs from trees, and if you live in the country as I do, you can understand that a top hat just wouldn't be a practical item of wear. So he was looking for something which would be more functional, because, you know, a top hat, when it gets knocked off, gets damaged, and as the landowner, you pay for the liveries of your staff. So this would be an expensive thing for the Earl of Leicester. And he insisted that the hat had to be robust, had to be tough, and capable of taking a knock or two. And hence, the bowler hat was created. Now, what makes the bowler a distinctive thing? Well, you can see that the bowler has got a distinctive rounded crown to it, which makes it quite tough and robust, quite solid and sturdy. And it has quite a short brim with an upturned edge to it, almost a lip which flicks upwards. And this makes the hat quite tough and robust. And, you know, you really feel like it's something which can, as I say, take a knock or two. My understanding is that when the Earl or his agent went back to Lock & Sons to check out the hat that they had created, his first action was to throw it on the floor and jump on top of it, to stamp on it, to see if it was able to repel the weight of a man, and hence, if it could, it would obviously be tough enough for the job for which it was intended. And that is the origin story of the bowler hat. Now, when we look back in history, the bowler hat would have been considered a hat for the working man, a practical, functional, utilitarian hat which was capable of, you know, standing the rough and tumble of life, yet still being very smart. But as time rolled forward, it became known as almost part of the everyday uniform of the middle classes, you know, bank managers, civil servants, people who worked in jobs where dressing smartly would have been the norm. They would have topped that off with the bowler hat. And as we look back through the passage of time, you know, the bowler has been seen perhaps on the heads of somebody, a gentleman bank manager going to work. Under his arm would have been his umbrella, his copy of the Financial Times, and his briefcase, going to work in an office. And that's how I think of the bowler hat. Now, when I look back into the history of the bowler hat, I was very surprised to find that it was undoubtedly the most commonly worn hat by people in the Wild West era of the United States. I often think of people wearing fedoras and, you know, the traditional cowboy hat. But actually, the vast amount of people in that era, working men, you know, cowboys or people working on the railroads, would have preferred the bowler hat because of its innately practical qualities. It is a tough hat. It is able to, you know, stand quite a lot of punishment. And because of its short nature, you know, it doesn't stand too prominent from the head, and the brim is very practical. It isn't easily blown off the head if you're riding a horse or working on a train. So the hat is going to be able to, you know, stand the elements far better than perhaps a wider brimmed hat, which would catch the wind and be blown off. I was also very surprised to find that many of the people I consider to be famous characters from the Wild West era, if we want to call it that, of the US, such as Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, and a number of other, Billy the Kid, you know, these famous outlaws, they've all been pictured wearing the bowler hat as their headwear of choice. And as we look around the world, it's also been very heavily worn in places as far-flung as the Philippines, and, you know, many other parts of the world, South America, and it even forms part of the Royal Guards uniform in Norway to this very day. So the bowler hat is actually quite an important part of the history in men's headwear. It's also fair to say that there are few hats which can have such a claim to fame as a cultural icon over the passing of time. When I think of people who've worn the bowler hat, I think of, you know, people like Winston Churchill, the greatest Briton of all time. He was seen wearing a bowler hat on many occasions, as well as his favoured Homburg. You can also think of people like David Niven, my favourite cultural icon of all time, the archetypical British gentleman. And of course, he would have been seen wearing a bowler hat in many of his films and undoubtedly in his private activities as well. When we look at other icons of the cinema age, Laurel and Hardy, Charlie Chaplin, the bowler hat was very much part of their on-screen personas and how we remember them today. So the bowler has been there for quite a long time now, well over 160, 70 years, and it's the impression it has made on general society from starting off as the working man's hat, then growing to be the hat worn by captains of industry, leaders of countries, is an interesting journey for any humble hat to make. Now today, like many formal gentlemen's hats, the bowler hat, its usage in everyday life has fallen into abeyance. If you walk around the streets in this modern era, you'd be very unlikely to see a gentleman wearing a bowler hat, unless perhaps you found yourself spending time in London, which is a highly stylish and still quite heritage-laden city. But even then, I think if you walked around, the city of London, the financial capital of Europe, you would be highly unlikely to bump into somebody wearing one of these, because times have changed. I mean, the bowler is still worn, but it will be on more ceremonial occasions. If you look at Remembrance Sunday, where people march past the cenotaph in London in the act of national remembrance, you will still see the gentlemen wearing their bowler hats, but that might be the only time that you see people wearing a bowler, except for somebody who's perhaps a little bit more confident, some might say more eccentric, but I think there is still a place for the bowler. In fact, in today's modern life. So to fulfill this challenge, I went ahead and I ordered a bowler hat from eBay. Where else do you look to buy something? And I was amazed to find that I was able to purchase this brand new bowler hat from a reputable company. It says it's handmade, 100% wool, and designed in England. I suspect it wasn't manufactured in England, but by the by, it's all part of its story. This hat cost me £17.99. Now I'm sure there are many people who would pay considerably more than that for a baseball cap. And for that, I've got a robust, good quality, brand new woolen handmade hat. I was amazed that I was able to pick up a hat for that price to start with. And I started to wear the hat in my daily life. Good morning and welcome back to another day with the Bowler Hat Challenge. Now, it is a practice of mine every morning before I start my day's work at home, working from home at the moment, to take a walk around my village. It feels like, a bit of a regime. I walk for a mile or so, and it's like that commute to work. It frees the brain and gets me ready for activity. And I've been wearing my bowler hat on some of my morning strolls. Again, this is perhaps not the natural environment. You would see somebody wearing a bowler hat walking around a rural village in England at 7 a.m. However, I have found the hat to be a worthy companion on my daily strolls. It repels the water. It's raining again today. Pretty wet week in the UK, and the hat has no issues with it, despite it being of wool construction. It repels the water rather well. As I've said before, keeps the head warm, and I have to say, worn with a raincoat, I don't feel out of place wearing the bowler. It feels actually, to me now, almost as natural as wearing my flat cap. So yeah, it's going rather well. I may be converted. The only downside is, my lady wife is somewhat less converted, and but then we're crossing that bridge. Okay, on with the walk. Now, it is fair to say that the hat didn't get as much use as it would have in perhaps a normal year, because this was filmed in 2021 at the tail end of the global coronavirus pandemic, and hence my life is considerably curtailed. I don't work in an office, I work from home, I don't socialise because that's not really off the table these days. But I wore the hat at every opportunity that I was able. When I went out for walks, I would wear the hat. When I went to the supermarket, I would wear the hat. And do you know what? I was somewhat perturbed at the beginning because I thought I would feel embarrassed. I thought I would look highly out of place. And to be frank, I thought I would look a fool. But actually, do you know what? The hat, the bowler, it built an inner sense of self-confidence when I wore it. I stood perhaps a little bit more erect when I wore this hat. I felt I looked smart and I looked presentable. Throw on a black overcoat as I'm wearing now with a collar and tie, and you're smart enough to go anywhere in the world for an outdoor occasion. So I think my £17.99 bowler hat was a wise investment, and I will absolutely enter this bowler hat into my regular rotation of men's headwear. I typically wear a flat cap when I'm casual, or a trilby when I'm, a little bit more stylish, but now I've got the next tier up. The bowler hat is there on those occasions when I want to look my very best. Next year, when I'm standing at Remembrance Parade, I'll be wearing the bowler along with my overcoat and the medals and everything else that you wear for that special occasion. So I'd like to thank Tim Crow from the Big Pretty channel for giving me this challenge, which allowed me to enter into a relationship, if I can call it that, with the bowler hat. It's been a journey of learning, a journey of exploration, and one which will change the course of my hat wearing life. So there we go. Thank you very much for joining me today here at the Chaps Guide. I hope you've enjoyed this somewhat unusual video today. If you have, I would encourage you to give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to click the subscribe button as well. That way you won't miss any of our future material. If you have a challenge for me, don't hesitate to drop me a line in the comment section below. I can't guarantee I will enter into the challenge, but I will certainly read it and give it some thought. Until the next time, take care of yourselves, and I will see you very soon.